Intro. All right. Welcome to Flywheel, your number one source for everything Frax, DeFi, and all that's in between. If you want to know what's going on, and coming on the world on chain, you come to the right place. This is DeFi Dave here with capital K, and we are here to help you harness the power of the flywheel. And on this rendition of Flywheel, we go into the temple, we bow our heads down, and we take a moment to listen to what the Templars at TempleDAO have cooking up in their humbled but huge walls, because there's a lot going on. And so they're huge walls and they're growing, ever expanding. They have a lot of stuff they're building, from the Grand Bazaar to Origami, potential airdrops they were hinting at, quote unquote, governance frameworks. I'll hold myself. You just have to go listen to the episode to see how you could possibly get those. But this was a great episode. Honestly, Temple is a true ally to Frax and the Frax community. I see a lot of parallels in their ideology and philosophy, and also what they're building and how they're building it. Kit, what are your thoughts on this one?
I just got to tell the listeners to get ready to clean their soul and don their robes, because we're going to go right to the heart of the temple.
Yeah, we're going to go right to the center and bow our heads down in respect to the TempleDAO. And we go down memory lane. And if you want to hear it all on this one, it's a really good episode. Make sure you stick around. If you want to catch everything Flywheel, make sure you hit that bell button, subscribe, give us a like, let us know what you think. Love it, hate it, anything in between. We want to know in the comments. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Flywheel DeFi. Make sure you follow us on Telegram and join the discussion there at Flywheel DeFi. Subscribe to our new website, flywheeldefi.com, down below. Do that right now. You can follow me on Twitter at DeFiDave22.
You can follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And you know what I'm going to say. Let's get the flywheel spinning.
ਦਿਲ ਪਰਦੇਸੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਨਿਤ ਦਾ ਰੋਣਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਨਾਲ ਰੰਜੇਟੇ ਜੋਗੀ ਦੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਜੋਗਣ ਹੋਣਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਜੇ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਅਲਿਆ ਜ਼ਖਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਖੁਦ ਹੱਸ ਕੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਸੀ ਲਾਂਗੀ ਜੇ ਯਾਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇਵੇ ਮੈਂ ਘਟ ਘਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਪੀ ਲਾਂਗੀ
Do you hold ETH but don't know what to do with it? Want to earn those juicy liquid staking derivative yields but don't know where to start? Well, FrxETH is there for you. FrxETH is Frax's native LSD solution, allowing you to earn boosted yields in multiple ways on your ETH. If you want to get started, go to app.frax.finance and turn your ETH into FrxETH today. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Flywheel. And today we step onto the altar. We say thanks and we show gratitude because we have on the TempleDAO folks. I don't know, adherents, TempleDAO adherents. Guys, thank you for coming on. We have Miri and Lux, two extremely talented degens and even better individuals. Miri and I have been hitting the conference circuit for a while. Loved your talkative stories. And Lux, you're a legend that whose reputation precedes itself. And so great to have you both on board and to hear what exactly Temple is cooking up down in your basement, honestly, because you and finally bringing it to the surface, because you've been doing a lot. It's been, even though it's been a bear market, you know what they say, bear markets are for building, and you guys have indeed been building. So guys, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Dave. That's an awesome intro.
Yeah, thank you. To get this started, maybe for people that aren't familiar with you guys in Temple, can you give a short introduction to yourself and what is TempleDAO today and what exactly you guys are doing?
Yeah, sounds good. I'll go first, Lux, and we'll alternate.
Go ahead.
I'm Miri. I've been with TempleDAO for almost 2 years now, which feels insane. I came in through the opening ceremony, loosely knew Lux via another DAO, and just kind of started moderating. At the time it was called the Temple Watch, now it's called Guardians, basically moderating. I did the OC, blew my mind, and basically started helping out wherever I could. Ended up taking on a few projects because hands full, crunch time, had to launch this thing, and then slowly started taking up more responsibility and was anointed Temple Master not long after. And
nice. From the opening ceremony to homegrown.
Yeah, homegrown.
Or should we say temple grown? Temple grown.
I've been in the space since about 2016. Ran a crypto adjacent company for about 5 years before Temple, and now living and breathing Temple day in, day out. Past 2 years.
All right, Lux. Now it's your turn. How did you get initiated into TempleDAO?
First, I'd like to say greetings and blessings to all the true believers and future Templars. I started out in the Temple community in the very early days, coming over from Olympus, from the Olympus Discord server. And I was really drawn into the whole on-chain church / cult vibes, and really wanted to, help push Temple in the direction of, true ascension. It was just the term that we called the Templars who make it, the Templars who make it to the very top. So I started out just like anybody else, just grinding in the Discord server, and eventually like Miri, I worked my way up to being sort of the master of the Enclave of Mystery, which is basically just making memes, making videos, and just basically doing completely unproductive things. But since it was a
that's very productive. If anything, that's the most productive.
It's culture.
Yeah, since it was a token launch, and it's all about the culture and the Pepe memes. I got a lot of attention from doing that, and as the temple grew, my help was needed in other areas as well. So I started doing more in terms of helping to guide the product development and some of the treasury management aspects as well. And of course, I can't forget to give credit to Decent Maxi, who was the Grand Templar who started this whole crazy ride. And the Temple story, in my mind, is just starting.
It's just beginning. And now we are at Temple today. There's been a lot of ups and downs, like there has been for every project. But like we said, you guys have been cooking up. You guys the TempleDAO team are releasing new products, and you guys are really fulfilling your mission as being this kind of like on-chain, low risk, low volatility asset that people can enter into. So where's TempleDAO today, and what are you guys up to?
So I think most... go ahead, Lux.
Yeah, so for those of you who know, I think Temple started off with sort of like an Olympus model, rebasing tokens. When you stake, you get the rebase rewards. And that worked out pretty well for a while because that was, again, peak season in DeFi. But as the landscape changed, as the macro environment changed, a lot of projects, included, had to sort of pivot and find a new product market fit. And for Temple, I think even though our original model was stake and chill, I think we really moved away from the staking part to make it even simpler. You don't even have to stake.
To make it even chiller.
All you need to do is chill, right? Like just buy Temple, no staking required. The yield automatically accrues to the price, and you don't have to lift a finger. And that seems to sort of like make things a lot simpler from a user experience standpoint. And our first, since this pivot, the key product that we've developed is called RAMOS. is basically like Temple's take on automated market operations. So it's a lot like the Frax AMO system, where basically there's a liquidity pool on Balancer, and then there's a contract that manages the liquidity, and then we have a bot using off-chain logic to basically make sure that the Temple price stays within a certain range of our what we call the backing value, or TPI, not to be confused with FPI, but basically it's the verifiable stablecoin backing in the treasury per circulating Temple token. And as the treasury grows, this value will grow, and then RAMOS will basically enforce the new peg in I guess softer way than Frax, but basically it keeps the price, the spot price, within usually within 1% of the TPI number.
Okay, so it's like a soft peg mechanism. You guys have an AMO, and the AMO makes sure that the Temple price is within a range instead of a specific peg.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Oh, cool. Ramos has...
Yeah, that's a good name.
Yeah, I like that name. It's like AMOs, but what does the R stand for?
Yeah, what does the R stand for?
Randomized.
Yes.
Randomized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you actually walk me through how that works? How do you keep that tight peg?
Sure. So basically there's a Ramos contract. And I guess the key parameter for that contract is the TPI value, which is arbitrary, right? Like it's whatever we set it to, and it's just a numerator over a denominator. So if we're setting it to 97 cents, then it would be 9,700 over 1,000, or whatever fraction we choose. And then what will happen is it will maintain the spot price close to this value by basically rolling dice. And I think degens will appreciate that analogy. So basically, when the price is within 1% of the spot price is within 1% of the TPI number, the bot won't do anything. But if it goes out of this range, what happens is it'll start rolling dice. So below, if it's 1% divergent from the TPI price, there will be basically a 5% chance of a rebalance up being called, if we're talking about the price being below TPI. And it'll do this every 30 minutes. So basically, within the 24-hour period, it'll have a really strong likelihood of rebalancing maybe 2 to 3 times a day if the spot price is below TPI. If the spot price falls significantly below, and for Ramos, we set that to about 3%, it'll do an automatic rebalance up, which means that it'll just, at the end of the next 30-minute cooldown, it'll just do a rebalance up. And it doesn't necessarily bring the price 100%. It doesn't close 100% of the delta between the spot price and the TPI. What it'll do is basically roll another dice where it'll close somewhere between 20 to 100% of the delta between the spot price and the TPI. And the reason for all this randomization, of course, is to prevent front running and basically bots taking advantage of like a known or fixed Ramos rebalance transaction.
Okay, got it. Let me try to summarize that to make sure I understand it correctly. So effectively, there is a threshold that you guys set, and let's just call that 1%. And when it hits that 1%, Ramos enters, and he has a cup of dice, and he just rolls the dice, and he'll see whatever the dice lands on, and that would decide how much he would effectively bid on the on Temple, just to kind of raise it back up into the quote peg. But then in the chance when it goes super depeg, like 3%, Ramos will come in again and immediately do the bidding, except they won't bid the full 3%. It'll maybe bid like 1% up, or it could bid all the way up to 3%, but it's random, so you really don't know. And it does so every 30 minutes across a 24-hour span.
it will roll. Well, so yes, that's pretty close. Even if it's just 1% below, it'll still rebalance basically a stochastic amount. So there's no certainty with respect to how much that gap will be closed, even if it's doing the automatic rebalance.
Got it. Okay, so it could remain, say, under 1%, but raise it back to like under 50 bips for a prolonged period of time.
Yes.
Understood. Yep. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Very
so
interesting.
Both the chance of occurring as well as the percentage of the delta that is closed are both randomized.
Hence the RAMOS. Okay, I see. It's like an AMO that has a mind of its own, and the team doesn't really control it. All right, I get it.
Yeah, so we never know when it's going to actually rebalance. If it's 3% or less, the low TPI, then it will definitely rebalance, but we still don't know how much.
Yeah, I just want to say I really love this random mechanic, not just for, as fighting against front running, but also I think this random mechanic could be used in DAOs and in governance, and I think in terms of like maybe like picking people to the council, or maybe picking certain policies and trying things out. I think randomness is like one of those things that can like stop like the wrong incentives from happening, because there's nothing to have incentives for if it's just like random. If that makes sense. Yeah,
and that's a really good segue into, I guess, one of the use cases for RAMOS. And again, all the things that Temple has built are kind of built for its own purpose. But we found a lot of sort of, I guess, eager listeners from even other DAOs who are, maybe struggling because they're trading significantly behind backing, and they're not quite sure, like what's the best way to bring up the token price so that it matches sort of like what people think the token should be priced at based on treasury holdings. So RAMOS is actually, in our mind, a really good DAO solution to raise the spot price up to whatever benchmark you want to set. It could even be, JPEGs, it could be ETH, just like there's nothing. RAMOS is very agnostic with respect to like what is the target that you want to hit, and also which backing token you choose. It could be anything.
So if I wanted to like make the peg to ETH, and I'm like, hey RAMOS, this is what I'm like, what I want to like peg to, it'll be like, all right, word. And then it would just start, bidding at random times. The amount would be at random times, all in that direction. So it's like an automated bidder, basically.
Yeah, and it's a sort of like a very elegant alternative to sort of like a fixed redemption contract, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. See Wonderland, see other projects, and those are very problematic because everyone can sort of front run because they know what the price is going to be. And here it's more of like even when it does do a rebalance, it's still sort of buying at the protocol is still buying at a profit because of the delta and also the swap fee. So it's kind of like guaranteed to raise the backing of the token for every transaction.
Yeah, very cool. And this actually segues into my next question very well, which is your farming strategy and your yields generation strategy for Temple token holders. What has it been like farming and trying to bring returns in this bear market, especially on chain, especially in a world where yields with treasuries have gone up to 5%. Everyone's trying to bring that back on chain. But you guys are similar to Frax in the regard of like, let's Frax before FrxETH. It's like, we're like entirely on chain. So what's it like trying to like hunt down those yields?
Ups and downs.
Ups and downs.
Luckily for the holders, mostly ups. For the ops team, mostly downs. The downs were reserved for the ops team.
Peace of mind.
The sleepless nights were mostly for the ops team. Through exploit season we had earlier this year. You had the Euler exploit, you had the sentiment exploit, you had USDC depeg, and we all came out entirely unscathed and even profitable for those events. months. But it didn't mean that we didn't have, 72-hour cyber sleepovers with with the rest of the ops team.
Sleepover.
Yeah.
I like
Awake over.
cyber sleepovers. That's good.
Yep, all the whole ops team in the chats, in the voice chats. It was funny because we had a rather large position in sentiment, and of course we didn't know if it was going to resolve well or not, and so we had to act as prudently as possible. And so anytime someone would repay into sentiment, we would be there refreshing Etherscan, and within 13 seconds manually pulling this out before we had a bot built. And people thought we had botted it, but it was 4 of us just continually refreshing Etherscan and pulling out as much funds as possible. So fun times, but at least the holders didn't really notice. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, nice. What like strategies have you guys been up to in the bear market? I know you guys are big users of FrxLend, but I'm curious what else you guys have been doing.
Yeah, just to sort of add context to what Miri is saying, before the Federal Reserve raised interest rates like crazy, DeFi was the place to get yields, right? I mean, that's pretty much what's spurred DeFi summer. And then back then, I guess, 2020, 2021, like you couldn't go to any web page without seeing like 2 or even 3 or 4 figure like APY numbers. Like you couldn't, there's just like endless like free money, so-called free money being given away, right? And then sort of when the bear market hit and then the Federal Reserve did what it didn't become extremely difficult. It was really weird because people were kind of asking like, okay, so I can get T-bills for 4% to 5%, CDs, etc. But then in DeFi, if you held like a stable coin, you're just doing like normal farming on the biggest curve pools, you're only getting like 2 to 3%. So it's very sort of like a very bizarre world where you had all this, DPEG risk and rug risk and all that, but you're not being rewarded proportionally for the risk that you were taking with the money. So in I think for probably all treasury managers would probably agree that scaling is extremely difficult in DeFi because it's like every yield opportunity closes in a relatively short amount of time as other farmers ape in, and every time you go in and out of these protocols, you're taking on risk, right? Whether the contract is exploited or there's a DPEG or something that kind of falls apart. So our sort of overall treasury management philosophy is that we, at least during this period, we want to be sort of very conservative and focus on risk-adjusted yields rather than, chasing every like degen farm that exists on L1 or especially in L2. The sentiment situation that Miri talked about was on Arbitrum, which is not like the lowest of the shitcoin chains, but it is kind of an L2 and there's bridge risk and all that. So after sort of being hit with 2 of these lending market situations like within a month, we really sort of took a more conservative approach and focused more on like capital preservation. And also we found that some of the treasury tokens that are, relatively analogous to Temple, where the token is underpriced relative to treasury holdings, those have worked out pretty well for us for the allocations that we invested in those protocols.
Can you go into more detail about that last part? What do you mean by that? What treasury tokens do you have in your treasury?
Yeah, so we've publicized those in our treasury report. So one project that we invested in was Rook.
Rook.
Yeah. So basically, it was sort of like
nice.
The token was trading below, I guess, its book value, and then Temple saw this as a sort of like a governance arbitrage opportunity, and invested some of its holdings, and then in the end there was peace in the land, and then the Rook token holders received, I guess, their share of the deal that was made between the team and the governance token holders.
Nice. And it's funny, when you talk about you guys being affected, especially with worry, when these lending protocols, whether it's Euler or Sentiment getting hacked, it sounds eerily familiar to when Rari was exploited last year. And that was the catalyst for Frax to be like, hey, we should just build our own lending market. And then when I see Origami, I'm like, it's like I kind of have this light bulb coming. I'm like, wait, like, did that go into building Origami? And Kit, I'll let you take this one.
Actually, before we get into Origami, I want to take a step back and just ask about the larger Spice Bazaar and kind of how does the Spice token fit into the TempleDAO ecosystem. Can we start there first before jumping into Origami?
Sure. In fact, they're kind of related. So the idea is behind the Spice Bazaar is, I guess, is sort of like our vision for how to add like a premium, like an extrinsic value to the Temple token price. And we think that a token like Temple, because of the soft peg, because of other risks inherent to the protocol, it should trade at a premium, or at least sort of outperform just holding the underlying stable that's backing the token, right? Whether it's Frax, whether it's DAI, or USDC, but to be really sort of like to be able to say like, oh yeah, you're doing well. I think we think that Temple token should trade at a premium to its backing value, or the TPI. So the Spice Bazaar is sort of this idea that basically, while Temple has done a fairly good job in terms of managing its treasury, ultimately that is not really where we will be able to add the most value. First and foremost, we still consider ourselves builders. So we want to build products and protocols and things that don't necessarily look like farming. So Origami is sort of like our first foray into this, I guess, moon token territory. But really, the idea of the Spice Bazaar is just Temple token as a base layer, much like FrxChain as a sort of like a base chain for the apps that are building on top of it. We want other projects and our own internal projects to be able to build on top of Temple. Now, people might ask, why, what do you mean by building on top of Temple? For a lot of the qualities that we've already discussed, such as deep liquidity, price stability, and then being able to sort of provide really good routing to stablecoins, building on top of Temple will allow any project to sort of leverage Temple resources, especially in terms of that bootstrap liquidity that we can provide, in terms of either stables or even ETH, as we've already done for certain partners. And for Origami, we would probably be on the lending side or the liquidity supplier side, and being able to sort of like help drive more TVL to the platform. And then what Spice Bazaar does is it's not just, we'll have these partnerships. It has a built-in mechanism for bi-directional redemption, where you can take your Temple token and basically exchange it for any one of the Spice tokens that we will have, and then you will receive that token plus the TPI that I mentioned earlier. So for basically swapping one Temple, you're gonna get like one Spice token plus the cash value of Temple. And you could also go in the other direction. You could provide the Spice token, provide the current cash value, and then you'll get one Temple back. And every time you do this exchange, there's a like a fee that gets taken by the protocol. And also it's shared with our partner. And so through this sort of redemption mechanism, we hope to drive value to both Temple as well as the Spice project.
So it's like an option on the growing ecosystem of TempleDAO projects. It's like, hey, I have a Temple token, I want exposure. You basically have it redeemed, you get the Spice token, and you get whatever the project is.
And it's kind of like, it's just like basically like another LP, so to speak. But the difference is there's never like new injections. So meaning that, whatever we seed to Temple and the Spice token at in the beginning, there's not going to be any other like liquidity providers. And so in the beginning, when the Spice token is cheap, there will be a lot of it in that contract. And then as hopefully the Spice project moons and people want this token, price goes up, and then the Temple holders can then swap their Temple for the Spice token, and then profit that way. Or alternatively, they can sort of like go back to Temple and wait for the next Spice opportunity.
Got it. So it's like
for the Spice to come to market.
It's almost like if FrxLend, FrxSwap, and FrxFerry all had its own separate token, but all built on top of Frax. It's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. It's like all of the Spices are sub protocols. I mean, granted, in Frax's case, they're building it themselves, but I would imagine you're kind of open to any partner coming on and building in the Spice Bazaar, right?
Exactly.
And we would just sort of like set an initial valuation. So let's just say there's a new project XYZ. We think it's worth $10 million at the very early stage. And so we sort of put in the number of Temple tokens to match that valuation. And then over time, what will happen is the number of Temple tokens in that contract will go up as people dump Temple for the XYZ token. And that value will basically accrue to the remaining Temple holders.
Got it. Understood. And let's talk about the first, Spice in the bazaar, which is Origami. Can you share with us some details about that?
And you guys have described it as an internal money market, which I think is a really interesting way to describe it.
Before I talk about that, Miri, did you have anything else to add about the Spice Bazaar?
Oh, just to affirm what Keith was saying, in that it's essentially an incubator framework, so that it's not just for TempleDAO internal products. So even Origami, in a sense, it's the first external product that we have, but then there's also various protocols that we partner with and who we might want to include within that framework of the Spice Bazaar. And also everything that Lux just said, it was quite a knowledge dump. So if you would want to take some time to go over that yourself, anyone who's listening, I recommend going to the Temple Medium and reading through the Spice Bazaar article. It is totally normal to only have captured about 20% of what Lux just said. Entirely normal.
I listened to your guys' DCF God space, and listening to that and then listening to Lux just now made it a lot easier to digest. So sometimes it just takes a few times listening to stuff.
Definitely. And it was also nice to be able to kind of go more in depth during this run than Spaces. I think we only touched on it lightly during the Spaces. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to elaborate there.
Hey, that's why we're here. We keep the flywheel spinning.
For sure. And like the thing that was difficult for me to kind of grok the first time was how the redemption and how the economics backing operated. Like I understood the whole, Temple's in the center and all the other projects are like the hubs and spokes on a wheel. Conceptually get that, but economically I needed a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah, like a flywheel. And then I needed a bit more help on understanding how does that tie to the economics. But Lux did a great job. And I feel like that provides like a really great launch pad, both like economically, but also in terms of like product wise, right? Because you guys are going to share all your learnings, how you use open ceremony as a service, and how you know, all of these things are going to be compounded and learning.
He's leaking the alpha.
OC as a service.
OC as a service. Okay. Oh, actually, speaking
excited.
of OC, I do want to share a story about the opening ceremony. I believe I was in NFT NYC at the time, and I had my laptop open in the hotel room playing the open ceremony. And I remember having to like go behind the wall to look at this secret message and then go into this pyramid looking thing, but you have to exit the pyramid to go underneath the base to look up to see the image. And whenever I ask anybody if they've done the TempleDAO open ceremony, the moment someone says yes, it's like instant brotherhood. It's like the Templar just knows each other. It's like, you went through that too.
It's amazing. I mean, Dave said, you know, we've done some conference runs together. First time, I was a little bit nervous because, you know, I didn't know how people feel about Temple, you know, throughout the bear market. But anytime I mentioned TempleDAO, they were like, "Oh my God, TempleDAO opening ceremony!" and they would get so excited. And like you said, instant brotherhood.
I think what makes Temple different from all the other Ohm forks and all the other projects was how original you guys were and how novel you guys were. Like the only thing you guys really had similar to Ohm was that opening rebasing mechanic, but you know. Decent Maxi and all like the OG team and everyone, they really went out of their way to create an experience. And I think a lot of builders can learn from that, whether they're DeFi builders, whether they're NFT builders or like DAO. It's all about the experience online. And Kit, like you still remember, everybody here who participated in this ceremony, there was something electric. There was something that you'll never forget. And you always have that bond with people. Like, hell, I mean, although I didn't participate in it, I was, you know, getting rugged during DeFi summer. And I feel like I have a bond with everyone during DeFi summer, like that, you know, during that special time. And I'm wondering if like these collective bonding experiences, like how they're going to come in the next cycle. Cause like kind of like right now, like there's been like a lull and stuff like, yeah, you have all these like meme coins, Gamblify coins or whatnot. But I wonder if there's going to be like something like deeper, like a deeper mechanic that will like, or deeper kind of like meme that will bond people collectively. Again, like I know it will repeat. I don't know how it's going to repeat or what it's going to look like, but what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Oof, that's interesting. So at least I think a lot of what's bonded us have been the struggles, and I think the opening ceremony was a fun struggle because it was 48 hours of puzzles to be able to sacrifice your frax for Temple, and all the other events. What the things I've bonded over since 2016. It's not been as much the good stuff, making money on a 10x or 100x or whatever. It's been the bad stuff.
It's been the struggle.
It's been the struggle. It's getting rugged on this thing, losing money on that thing, and it's that doing that collectively that creates that bond. Which anytime at Dave, so many people that bonded with because like, oh my God, you've been in the spaces then. Oh, you got rugged on that thing too, and it just creates an instant bond. And we'll probably have a few of those, but on the positive end of things, as Kit was just slightly leaking the alpha there, we have been working on a more advanced version of the opening ceremony that we're calling Nexus. That partners will also be able to use to have their own little version of the opening ceremony and kind of bring that positive vibe back, which I think everyone would appreciate.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'll share my story too. We had a call with JonesDAO recently, well, not recently, but maybe 6 months ago. And one of their leads, Knock, when we got on the call, he was raving about like the experience that he had in the opening ceremony as well. And he was saying that at the time he was on the Olympus policy team and everyone on the Olympus policy team was just like doing the opening ceremony, and he, for some reason, like his computer was not cooperative, and he just couldn't finish the puzzles. He did the walkthrough. You know, he had someone try to like walk him through on the microphone or the headphone, and he still couldn't finish it. And he was like so upset because like he was the only policy council member who couldn't finish the opening ceremony. And then when I told him that, oh, you know, we sort of we basically turned it back on again, and you can go to this website and go through it again, like it was your first time. And he was like so psyched, you know? So yeah, you just never know when you run into someone who still has fond memories of that opening ceremony. And I think the secret there is just having this shared emotional experience. And I think for the first time in DeFi, that actually happens, right? I mean, we all know people are in it for the money, you know, the degens, the apes, we get all that, but Temple was like sort of like the first time that I can remember where people went through an ordeal, and they laughed, they cried, they made new friends, and you know, they remembered. So I think, you know, opening ceremony itself will never be replicated, the magic, but certainly I think we can come up with some creative ways for people to have that shared emotional experience again.
I think you captured it very well with the word magic.
Shared emotional experience.
Yeah.
Magic. Will there be an opening
really
ceremony for, well, actually, no, Origami's already live. I was like,
right.
Some ceremony for Origami.
I can only say that we're trying. I mean, we have some very interesting puzzles that we're going to try to incorporate.
Oh,
cool. But yeah, let's talk about Origami, guys. Like, what is Origami, and what makes it different from all the other competitors? Yeah.
So to set the stage, I mean, Origami is on the surface, or the first fold, as we call it. It looks like an auto compounder in a pretty crowded field, and we started off building, like the first token that Origami supports is obviously GLP and GMX. And that was because when we first started working on Origami, that was the hot new girl, right, in school. And everyone was trying to build on top of GMX. And there's like...
Everybody wanted a piece.
Yeah, there's over like a dozen projects that made auto compounders of one type or another. And now that, you know, GLP yields are sort of down only, all these protocols are sort of stuck with this product that doesn't really generate a lot of yield, but then, you know, they have it on their platform, and they don't quite know what to do. So I think the idea of Origami is that we want to support sort of like the newest and coolest yield token, or LST, that people want to get leverage on. And leverage, there's always like two parts to leverage, right? There's the borrower who wants to sort of increase their exposure directionally to a certain token. And then there are these lenders who are going to, you know, give out either fully collateralized or slightly under collateralized loans to these borrowers so that they can continue to get more of that token. So the Origami is not necessarily an auto compounder. It's more of a money market model where we sort of create incentives and put in the safety measures in place so that lenders can feel comfortable lending on the Origami platform to these degens and leverage seekers. And similarly, the degens can get like crazy leverage, but not a lot of like manual position management like they would otherwise have to do. So right now, like if you wanted to go long on GMX, for example, you would have to borrow money from somewhere that takes GMX as a collateral, and then somehow use that money to buy more GMX, and you have to sort of like manage your health ratio at all times, and it's very tedious. And what Origami does is it basically turns this very labor-intensive money market leverage strategy into a simple staking experience, where the borrower just puts up the collateral, whether it's GLP, GMX, or whatever else on mainnet, and then the underlying vault system will basically optimize the flow of capital between the stablecoin lender to one or more of these leveraged vaults. And if the performance of these vaults, the leverage vaults is not up to par, the stablecoin vault will also deposit into sort of like a low risk strategy such as DSR or the Aave V2 market, basically to ensure that the capital is never idle, and that we're always sort of fully capital efficient. So that is sort of like the key difference between Origami and some of these other competitors, is that we were designed from the ground up, not for any particular token, which could get stale in 6 months. It's really a way to bring liquidity suppliers to people who want leverage.
Understood. Okay. And just so I can group that all together for my own understanding, you effectively offer a auto compounder, but also help me manage my liquidation risk so that I don't have to worry about that. And that is as on the borrower side. On the lender side, I deposit my stablecoin with you, with Origami, and I know that no matter what, this stablecoin is going to be either lent out to the GMX leverager, or it's going to be diverted to other more safer options like DSR, Aave, just so that there is no idle capital.
That is correct. Yep. So we're going to target 95% utilization ratio for the stablecoin. So the remaining 5% will be supplied as
working
sort of
capital.
Yeah. Well, it's
Capital efficiency.
It's going to be deposited into some lower yield but safer non-leveraged strategy, and then if you want to withdraw, that's the initial exit liquidity that gets provided.
Yeah, what I find interesting about your model is with the DSR, that is currently pre-FrxETH, that's the risk-free rate of DeFi. It's like the simplest, easiest, safest thing you can do with your assets. Is like if all the yields go down and our stuff is just too risky, you just put it in the DSR. Yeah, well, that's for mainnet. On Arbitrum, unfortunately, there is no DSR, but yes, that's the general idea. We'll pick whatever but we will also expand to mainnet as well. So then we'll take advantage of the low risk opportunities on mainnet. But if you look at some of our competitors, what you'll see is that there's sort of like too much demand on the leverage side, but then like on the supplier side, there's not enough USDC providers or USDT providers. And the reason for that is because, if you're going with sort of like a regular, like a revenue share model where you're taking part of that yield and you're giving that to the lender, and then the rest of it is going to either the protocol or the borrower, that works well until yields drop, right? And as soon as yields drop, like you're in this sort of death spiral where there's not enough liquidity providers to generate the leverage, and so those vaults are oversubscribed, but then the yields, because it's not leveraged, the yields are low, so then there's not a lot to share in terms of revenue. So you're in this sort of like very awkward situation where you might have 99% subscription in the leveraged vault, but only 20% subscription in the stablecoin vault. And that is the sort of like the situation that we want to avoid, and we've designed extensively around preventing this from happening.
Yeah, and I think you guys are able to...
just to expand on Kit, what you were saying before in your summary, just to add a bit of nuance there, the GMX GLP offering that we have now is something that we launched with on July 26th. So that's the first offering that we have, but we are expanding into other liquid staking tokens relatively soon after the launch of V2. So that's the second fold. And this will include...
FrxETH be there?
I was just about to say, might just include FrxETH at some point, wrap staked ETH. So that's obviously something, like Lux said, that we'd have to expand to mainnet for, and would want to as well. Also to just attract more liquidity, because on Arbitrum, it's at the moment it's just not really there. And of course, mainnet right now. It's just the highest amount of liquidity. So it makes most sense from all aspects for us to move there as well.
So what's the roadmap looking like for Origami? Did I hear or hint at a token possibly coming? And did I hear of a possible airdrop if certain airdrops are taken? Cannot confirm nor deny.
Shall neither confirm or deny. What I can say is that, well, like I said before, it's an independent sort of external protocol that will likely have its own governance. Do with that what you will. And of course, in such a scenario, we would take early depositors into account.
And also, like, what are, like, if I'm an Origami user, what are like some ways I could generate fees for the protocol? If like what actions are taken to like for fees to be generated by the protocol?
So right now in the first fold, from the auto compounders, the fee is basically 5% of the yield that is received. So if the protocol is compounding whatever 10 ETH, then Origami will take 5% of that, and then roll the rest of the ETH into the vault as sort of like increasing the share price for the vault shares. For the leveraged vaults, we're probably going to, I mean, it's still a little bit fluid right now, but we're going to take basically a cut of the reserve ratio, which is basically like when the leveraged vaults repay their debt, part of that repayment will go to the Origami protocol. And so basically it's like debt that wasn't repaid.
Got it. Fees may or may not be important for the airdrop. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, with what do we got here? Can you tell us about, do you guys have any other products under audit, like maybe another lending product or a governance product you have under audit in the Temple universe?
You are well informed. It is true. The rumors are true. We do have currently Temple Loving Care, Temple Line of Credit, TLC, under audits, which comes with a whole new governance framework, which is a massive building block towards our vision of making Temple entirely decentralized and autonomous, as a DAO should be. I feel, DAOs have just strayed from the original path of what it was supposed to be. And we want to put Temple on that right path. And with that, means minimal human involvement. We feel that quite often DAOs get started, raise a bunch of money, and they just keep building and spending money until that's done. We feel that at some point, what you've created needs to be self-sustainable. It needs to stand on its own in terms of decentralization, but also just run almost entirely autonomously. Now that comes with certain asterisks, of course. You can't just go from 0 to 100. And that means having certain circuit breakers and some backstops, especially in the beginning. But this is something that is very soon to follow Origami.
My new favorite term is governance framework. I'm going to use that for now. For now on.
If I could just add to what Miri is saying. So just going back to sort of our earlier discussion about treasury management, it is my personal belief that treasury management doesn't really scale. The reason is because of yield chasing, and then the way liquidity works in DeFi just basically means that all yield opportunities shrink to basically the market rate sooner rather than later, and that's on top of the contract risk that you're taking every time you move money. So in sort of like Lux's version of Temple's future, it would have a very limited set of strategies that it's actually allocating to. Let's just say, maybe there's only 3. Maybe there is RAMOS, and then there is TLC, and then there is like Spice project A, B, and C, right? So basically, all of these are internal facing contracts and protocols. So we have a much better grasp of the risk from interacting with these contracts. And then at that point, treasury management can be pretty much entirely automated, right? Because then it's just like there's no discretionary allocations at all. It's just like Temple is providing this base layer liquidity to these revenue generating products. And that is sort of like the future that I see as the sort of the grand Temple, where treasury managers are more or less just there for the culture, and the protocol runs itself, and the signers execute the will of the DAO according to the specifications of the proposal. But the rest of it is more like a huge dashboard that anyone will be able to manipulate.
So treasury managers become cultural curators. I like that.
I'm thinking I'm sure you guys know, like FrxGov recently went live, and I was curious to see if there's a way to integrate elements of FrxGov into Temple so that it truly is, there is no multi-sig that needs to be signed, and just to kind of, in case you guys weren't caught up with FrxGov, is effectively having a dual governance system. There's the alpha and the omega, and the omega is effectively a optimistic proposal. So it is only being able to be proposed by the team. And let's say you guys want to do some simple RAMOS operation, you guys can make a quick proposal for it. It would most likely go through because there's only take 4% or X%, like a very low parameter for it to pass. And then there is the alpha governor, which is much more robust and demanding. It requires a very high vote in order to pass through, because alpha can effectively do anything and change the government parameters across the board. But the benefit of having this system is now there is no longer a multi-sig that needs to be signed by the team. Everything literally executes through governance by the FXS holders.
Oh, that's interesting. I was going to say, because I did a bit more reading about FrxV3 before coming on. I didn't actually realize that FrxGov was already live. So definitely looking forward to learning a bit more about that after the call.
Yeah, we do have a pod that we did with the creator.
Docs were just released. Docs were just released today.
Oh, today? Yeah. Oh, so this is very fresh. Okay, so we're not.
No.
Okay.
You guys are literally, we are at the cutting edge. Yeah, no. So,
okay.
Yeah. The bleeding edge.
So, yeah, you guys are definitely.
That sounds very similar to sort of like the tribe model, where like the code that gets executed is what gets approved. But this is just sort of like taking that to the next level with elevated access controls.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
Yeah. So speaking of Frax, this segues to my next question pretty well. You guys have been a part of the Frax ecosystem ever since the ceremony when people needed Frax in order to get their temple. And you guys have participated and have been quite active in the Frax ecosystem using the Frax family of products ever since. So can you guys explain to our listeners and fellow Fraximalists how you guys are involved in the Frax community right now, what you guys are doing, what are you guys using, and also what are your thoughts on Frax V3? Because a lot of these products that you're building, I could definitely see, whether it's like Frax Bonds or some Frax V3 or something else, be integrated in Origami or in whatever you guys have cooking up there. But I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we, I guess looking back and watching sort of your talk about stablecoin maximalism, Temple actually, I guess unbeknownst to itself, has been walking that path for a while now, right? Like we have this sort of idea of reserve backing per token. And then we built this RAMOS, which is like your swap facility. And then we're introducing this sort of a line of credit or lending facility and then we're using these sort of pillars. We're going to build more stuff on top of it, and create that synergy. So we're definitely brothers from, I guess, different mothers in that sense, where we sort of believe in the same thing. We believe in a lot of the same things, and we do believe that stable value is a very critical ingredient for transaction and value for the ecosystem. So yes, we just going back to Origami. I mean, if you look at it from perspective of any like liquid staking protocol like FrxETH, I mean, Origami is basically like a turbocharge for like TVL, right? Because if you get added to Origami, what it's going to do is just pump crazy amounts of leverage into that staking protocol and really drive up the TVL. So we see sort of FrxETH as a very like a natural partner for Origami. And then in terms of Temple, on the Temple side, something like, I guess, the Frax equivalent of DSR, when that's ready, we'll certainly be interested in integrating with that as a sort of like the risk-free strategy for the Temple V2 system, where we're not sort of just totally all in on DAI or USDC. We're sort of like spreading the stablecoin holdings among the different relatively risk-free stablecoin strategies. Got
it. Miri, what about you? What are your thoughts on ways that TempleDAO is participating and has been active in the Frax ecosystem?
I mean, obviously, we've been one of the largest Frax supporters from day one. Like you said, opening ceremony, the only way to participate was to get Frax. And this was at a time where Frax wasn't very well known yet. This was say October 2021-ish. So it was interesting because a lot of people, they, you know, in supporting people in being able to sacrifice their Frax, they first had to get Frax. We had to walk them through and say, oh, what's Frax? And, you know, having to educate people on what Frax is. And that, of course, you know, at some point we were single largest holder of Frax, and as Temple in its treasury governance also contains multitudes, we had to start diversifying the treasury, but then still ended up being a very large user of Fraxland. And like Lux said, we see them as a strong ideological partner still. I was very excited to read that FrxGov, that they were working on FrxGov within V3. So, you know, those kind of innovations, they're a necessity. Back in 2017, you know, kind of everything was bullshit, right? You know, everything was bullshit, and it stopped being bullshit once we got stablecoins. And since then, it's only the ecosystem has only started to mature more and more as the stablecoins started to develop and the ecosystems around that started to build, which is also something I think you touched on in ETHCC. Within that stablecoin maximalism talk. And within that, you know, we are also strongly ideologically aligned because, funnily enough, yes, also what you touched on within stablecoin maximalism talk, Temple also, you know, we're mostly stables backed. We are also diverging around that idea of becoming, well, kind of a degen pseudo stablecoin now, being backed to our treasury and being mostly stables backed, which is also, you know, kind of stablecoin maximalism. And of course, you know, the team being the big brains that they are, we do keep a keen eye on what they're developing, what they're working on, and see how we can build further on that and integrate it with what we're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Temple token has its own natural inflation to it. And you guys see these activities on chain, and like as you guys do these activities, the token raises in value, but the collateral backing it is actually is pretty much all stables and a diversified set of stables. And your swap facility is the curve pools, I assume, or am I getting that right?
Balancer.
My bad. Balancer is your swap facility. So do you guys participate in the Aura wars? It looks like Kid is actually in a typhoon right now. So yeah, it's all good. I'm here to carry on the interview. All right, I'm gonna go to the next question. If you guys have stables, you guys are doing all these strategies on chain, but what do you guys think of RWAs and off-chain yields? Have you guys thought about that at all? Has that affected on your yield strategy at all? Are you guys strictly on chain, or have you thought about off-chain things?
That's a cool question. So we've already partnered with Ondo back in the day, during their V1, before they really went the RWA route. There's even still some old Templars working at Ondo. So we have close relations there, and we like to keep up to date with that
Templars
too.
everywhere, I see.
Yeah.
It's like a hidden society.
Do you guys have a secret handshake?
Yeah. Oh, we should have one.
It's a foot rub, actually.
It's a foot rub.
Very on brand.
Yeah, that's incredibly crypto. We love feet here.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're getting merch coming out soon too. That's also a bit of alpha. Getting some merch out soon.
That's
you can recognize the other Templars.
Yeah.
We've spoken to RWA providers, also Stream Finance. Really cool. I think DAOs are the logical target audience for this thing. Legal part is a bit tricky, so I think there should be some rails for that to be developed, so it becomes easier to onboard these DAOs. I think that might be a little bit of a struggle, because otherwise, so some people have been bearish on RWA type protocols because they're like, okay, the people who are in crypto for the degen returns. If they are interested in RWAs, they just have a brokerage account, but that's not true for DAOs. And for us, it could be very useful. It's just those initial hurdles need to be overcome. It's all a bit new. It's a bit scary. It introduces new risk vectors, of course, because you have some more counterparty risk on top of the regular smart contract risk. So these are all new things that kind of need to be evaluated. And then there's the legal risk on top of that. But I think it's a very logical, natural progression. And this is also something we keep a keen eye on and keep talking to the main providers to eventually perhaps partner with.
Yeah, and just to add to what Miri is saying, so real world assets, it sounds great, and that's mostly driven again by the macro, right? Because it seems like right now the real world yields are higher than what you might find in DeFi. And with lower risk, but then we don't know sort of like how to quantify the confiscation risk, right? Like, what if the SEC or whomever places a call and then you can't move your assets out, right? Or your bank goes down, right? So things like that, it's just a little bit hard for sort of like an on-chain Web3 entity to really price in that risk. But I am bullish on sort of like the tokenization of real world assets, and in particular tokenization away from sort of like U.S. jurisdiction, and that's really important because as we saw sort of during the Ukraine crisis, the U.S. can basically just flex its muscles and say, oh no, we're not going to do business with you, and we're not going to let you sell your oil or your corn or whatever the Russians were selling. So that kind of causes a lot of problems because really money is still kind of backed by commodities. So recently, and I guess it's been really accelerated with the crisis in Ukraine, is just there's been I think a major steps being taken toward the tokenization. So two projects that your listeners can sort of do some research on. One is these aren't crypto projects, but Project Guardian and Project Mariana. So these are basically big banks, the Bank of International Settlements, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, basically talking about how to tokenize real world assets and create curve-like AMM pools to facilitate trade, to settle transactions, etc. And what's missing in these sort of frameworks that they're proposing is like the US dollar, or at least it's not being mentioned as like the key pillar of these new systems that they're building. So I think there is sort of this unspoken understanding that maybe the US dollar has sort of like outlived its usefulness as sort of the super dominant currency of choice for world trade, and that we really need to sort of take advantage of all the advantages that blockchain provides, and being able to create new yield opportunities and for trade on a ledger, like a digital ledger that's not really owned by anyone, and especially not the US. So I think this is a fantastic time for stablecoin or stablecoin-like projects to sort of like be ready to take advantage of these opportunities when they finally come into view.
Yeah, it's funny. I go back and forth about the U.S. dollar world reserve currency status, because although there's like a lot of talk about like, oh, like how long will it last? It's still the dominant currency, and still is like. Granted, it may be used a little bit less for trade, but like the world still thinks in dollars. Hell, your treasury, your collateral and treasury is basically in dollars right now. I like wonder, I don't. It makes whether the world goes like one way or the other way. Mm-hmm. Like it will take some time to figure that out. I think like the next like something that could be like a stable coin of the future that. People like talk about, especially in our universe, is like I think like ETH-backed stablecoins could actually become a thing. Honestly, like people talk about ultrasound money as a meme, but now ETH has these characteristics of money, the risk-free rate, and everything that if it gets and it is used. So right now, like it may be used to just buy and sell NFTs. But in the future, if like people start thinking in ETH, like I'm thinking of NFTs in ETH, we think of NFTs in ETH. But if like more things get, thought of in ETH, then that gains, more, Lindy as money. Because I'm not sure if I even want like another like fiat currency or another country or block of countries to be the world reserve currency. And it will be interesting to see like how all this evolves.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd rather see America or ETH, to be honest. And I'm biased as an American.
I think at the beginning it'll definitely be multipolar, but it's just to sort of de-risk the U.S. confiscation. That is, I think, the biggest thing in terms of real world asset opportunities. Yeah,
I feel like there'll always be some risk of confiscation, whether it's by the U.S. or China or some other nation state. That's just like the real world. Like the real world has guns. That's
for sure.
that's the fact. But I want to get back on the world on chain and kind of the journey that you guys have been on as Templars throughout the years. It's been a lot of ups. It's been a lot of fun. Opening ceremony. This brotherhood created, sisterhood, or just like gathering of bonding of people out there, to maybe the struggles, maybe the downs. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned over the past 2 years being a humble contributor to TempleDAO?
Yeah, so with that, managing decentralized teams and managing those things better, things like deadlines, but also working together. I think that there's a lot to say there, lots of unique challenges. One of the cooler things that I saw during, I think that we all saw at Temple during post-opening ceremony, pre-AMM launch period, was that there was such a high degree of talent liquidity that it kind of gave us an insight into what the future of work could be like. Because, and this is this would sound insane to someone who works in TradFi or Web2, but we could have a skill gap at 11:30 a.m. and by noon it would be filled and that person would be working and running, a new person. And then by 2, we could have another skill gap. And then by 2:30, we could have that skill gap filled. And that person would be working and would be compensated for it. That's insane to people in Web 2. And it gave us this really cool insight to what the future of work could be like. And obviously, we've encountered a lot of those unique struggles over the last few years, also because our team is very decentralized from over the entire world. There's lots of people in Asia, Australia, Europe. There's a couple in the US, and that's obviously also time zone management. There's some people who are full-time, some people who are part-time. Everyone gets paid in crypto. How do you manage that? How do you stay competitive? How do you make sure that people are happy and fulfilled in their work? How do you, on the other side, make sure that people don't quite quit? And so there's been a lot of challenges.
It's like a human element to it.
A huge human element, and it's
human resources per se.
A huge human resource and project management element to it, and especially because we're all Anon, so we work with Anons only, which adds this extra layer of challenge, but also, funnily enough, a deeper level of humanity and meritocracy. For the most part, we have no idea what our co-contributors to the temple look like or where they're from. We could hazard a guess based on time zones, but and accents. Sometimes it's misleading. Mine might all be psyops. But
IDK, bro, could be psyops.
But it's all been based on merit. I don't know your gender, your orientation, where you're from, and that's another quite beautiful aspect of that. And then secondly, I would say that sometimes the best way to move fast is to move slow. We've dodged a lot of bullets by not rushing into things, but just moving a little bit more slowly. We've also learned our lessons in that regard in rushing to market because there's certain market pressures and you want to be fast because it's a fast moving space. But often it also pays to be slow, and building DeFi products safely, you can't rush that. There's a million lessons there, but I'll leave it at those two.
Yeah, that's really good. And like for me, my favorite question to ask, like any DeFi projects or any projects at all, like what does success look like for
the
TempleDAO?
ultimate kit question? What does success look like?
Yeah,
Lux, you want to have a crack at that?
I'll let you go first.
All right, I think. Looping back to what I said earlier about us, success vision of wanting to be fully decentralized and autonomous. So it's that part alongside still being able to generate the best possible risk-adjusted returns for the holders. The new governance framework is going to be a key in unlocking that vision. We're looking forward to be able to build that out. It's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be a necessary challenge that I hope will also push the entire space forward and also push other DAOs in moving in a similar direction. Yeah.
So for me, for success, I guess my primary role at Temple is basically product manager, and over the last year and a half, 2 years. What I've learned is that the product market fit is really important, and it's very easy to sort of dive right in and start building and iterating on what you think the customers want without actually asking them or getting input from the community. So it's really important, I think, for the team to be connected to not only DeFi at large, and being very vigilant and alert about where the trends are, as well as just talking to the community and getting feedback on things that you're building, and not sort of like go head down for 3 months and then pop up with something kind of weird, and then like the community hates it, right? So I think we've all sort of been there, but for DeFi project, it's particularly important because during the opening ceremony, there was a lot of money involved. There was a lot of expectations, and the sort of like this idea that once you have the money in hand to start the work, that's like the start of the journey. That's not like the finish line, right? So a lot of projects have gotten into trouble, I guess, not delivering value. And I would hope to see Temple deliver value in a very concrete way. So something that I mentioned earlier, generating this extrinsic value premium for the Temple price, and being sort of like this go-to place for new projects where they were like, they want to lean on our experience, our strengths, and work with us to sort of build that synergistic value and making sure that it's a good fit for both sides. So that's sort of like what I think success looks like. It's where like Temple is sort of like this benevolent base layer for a lot of other hopefully wildly successful projects.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that you guys will be not just cooking, but serving some really exciting projects to degens and non-degens everywhere. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, we'd like to do a little lightning round where we take a step back from the temple and go out into the field and touch grass and get to know who you guys are as people. We'll just do 3 questions each just because we're short on time. Kit, you take the floor.
Yes, to get to know the human behind the Templar, let's start off with Miri first. When was the first time what was your virgin crypto experience? When was the first time you touched the blockchain and sex doesn't count?
That's a great question. I'm thinking, should I tell the real story, the fake story?
Say whatever you want. It's all psyops.
Okay, I'll tell the real story then.
The real story, okay, guys.
Which
story.
was it was buying drugs on the internet. I'm not gonna lie. 2016. Got 10% discount if I bought Bitcoin. I was like, well, this Bitcoin thing, better figure out how to do it. Don't have to put those dollar bills in an envelope anymore.
People like that's like their first on-chain experience, but they just don't say it. But you can.
I think if you're from pre-2017, you probably
like fake ID or some shit like that.
Yeah, you're either a hardcore libertarian or you were probably buying drugs.
Or just experimenter.
Yeah,
nice.
so that was me. Bitcoin first, and then read about Ethereum afterwards. Not too long afterwards, and then I was going through a breakup at the time, and I just needed something to distract myself with, and we just went programmable money, amazing, and just went down the rabbit hole and kind of never looked back.
Got it. And then Lux, what was your first experience?
So my first experience was just like everyone else buying some Bitcoin on a centralized exchange.
You say some buy some.
Yeah, no, not nearly that exciting. But I my most vivid memory was like getting some like the infamous Hex airdrop from Richard Hart, who's been in the news recently, and thinking that, this is a total scam, and not even claiming. And then I find out 2 years later that Hex Moon and became this fake $1 billion market cap coin. I'm just like,
it got huge.
No, I know, and it's just much regret for not claiming free tokens. But airdrops definitely was my first experience with crypto.
Yeah.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah. I'll take the next question. Who do you guys think should be our next guest on Flywheel? Who would you recommend to come on Flywheel? Miri, go to you first.
Oh, God. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't looked through your entire anthology yet. I think DCF God would probably be a great guest.
Oh, true.
If you haven't had him on yet. I guess shill some of our partners, guys at Wasabi, NFT Options Protocol. It's a bit different from perhaps what you guys usually do, but it's also something that's very novel. I haven't really seen that be done successfully yet, and these guys are doing it. Great guys to have on, so I'd shill them. Who else? I don't know. I'll probably come up with like 5 more names after, and I'll text
Have you guys worked with Caviar before?
Yeah.
Caviar also. Caviar's also a good
was just
one.
gonna mention
Also
that.
Temple partners.
I met those guys, and because they're part of. They were a project out of the guys from Cambridge. I know HomeDAO. They're HomeDAO project, right? Or maybe not. Never mind.
I'm not sure. But we are also partnered with Caviar. We are still, I think, the largest liquidity provider on Caviar as well. So
really
on
cool.
Wasabi and on Caviar.
They're in my ETH Japan wrap up. I was like 4 projects to watch, and Caviar was one of them.
Oh, nice. They were at ETHCC as well.
Oh, they were. I missed them.
Yeah,
I like them a lot.
They co-hosted an event with Wasabi and some other guys.
Yeah. All right, Lux.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, I
You can't
can't.
say Caviar now.
I'll just give a shout out to
No.
Tomoyaki because he's like the lead at Caviar. He's really
Okay,
good. So I'm trying to think of another partner that we've worked with.
Well, it doesn't have to be a partner. It could be anyone. It could be like some anon you find interesting. It could be like somebody not even in crypto, or like, I don't know. This could be, who do you want to see on Flywheel?
I like to see Sifu on Flywheel, actually.
Oh, yo, that would be.
Whoa.
Could we do that?
Oh, that's a twist.
Yo, could imagine if we had Sifu? Yo, let's do that, kid. That is that is a phenomenal recommendation. Sweet.
Have you guys also had the Barra guys on yet?
I want to. Not yet. We're waiting for.
I think you should. I think that would be
Yeah.
a great episode.
I know. Well, only if their chain's real. So, like, I just gotta.
Even
see.
if
Only
the chain's not real, it's going to be a really fun episode.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, one of our most watched videos on the Flywheel channel is Barachain Alpha Secrets. This was back in like September of 2022 with 0xD24. But I know, like, you know, we'll have the Bear guys on for sure. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. Yeah, Dev, Smokey, the whole crew on. But anyways, on that note, we are really coming up close on time, so we're only going to do 2 questions this lightning round. But Miri, Lux, thank you for opening the doors to the temple for us to walk in, learn, educate ourselves. It's been a lot of fun, and we hope to see you guys again. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been really fun.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we hope we can come on the show again.
Thanks, boys.
GM, everyone. Welcome to the post game. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here with Capital K, and we are right now walking out of the TempleDAO doors back into the studio. That was a lot to take in, but not too much to take in. But it was a good amount of information. And the thing I said right after this interview was, damn, there are so many parallels between how TempleDAO is developing and how Frax is developing, both in their philosophy of stablecoin maximalism, both in the way that they're building products, both in the way how they're thinking about minimizing governance and human interaction and managing their treasuries. These projects have been parallel to each other since Temple launched, since you needed to use Frax to get the Temple token during the original opening ceremony. And it was just such a natural fit to have them on. Kit, what are your thoughts on this one? What are your biggest takeaways?
I mean, I feel like I think you guys nailed it when you said the parallel thing, because when I saw Spice, like as I understood more about it, I was like, oh, it's basically if every sub protocol of Frax's was its own independent project, this is what it would look like, right? This is with its own independent token and with Frax as like the base layer. Like this is exactly what it looks like.
Hey, I got a spicy question. No, I have a spicy question for you. Do you see a future where Frax's sub protocols become more independent and they do have a governance token associated with them? Because right now, their sub protocols of Frax, an extension of Frax and the FrxETH token, but I wouldn't rule out, let's say like the protocol matures more and, we want Fraxland, if one needs like more resources for its development and it's going on its own path. I wonder if there is a future where maybe Frax has their own Spice token. And then like the FrxETH token is kind of like an option, like the Spice token equivalent is like the upside and like gaining value, like underlying value to FrxETH. Do you see a future where that could be possible, or am I just like hallucinating here?
I think you're just teasing a question, an answer out of me, and it's rhymes with Axe Chain, and that is Frax Chain, right? When that comes out, it would totally be. It could totally evolve into being, instead of a sub protocol, into a protocol built on top of Frax Chain.
Native tokens for Frax Chain. It makes complete sense. Like the first projects to be these sub protocols.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. But all these sub talking reminds me of like Maker's sub DAO or meta DAOs and how they will have their own tokens. Right. And how like the Maker token is going to effectively get some airdrop. I'm not sure what the tokenomics are, but like it always accrues back to Maker. And I think, Maker, Temple, and Frax are all clipping along the same path. Yeah,
for sure. It's, same thing with stablecoin maximums. And there's this one universal structure for a stablecoin. Hell, if you make that broader, there's probably one universal structure on how to accrue value to a token as well. And so what are some things that surprised you in this interview, Kit?
Honestly, it surprised me that Temple is still trucking along and having such a strong base of like contributors. Because, not a lot of projects, I figured like after all the exploits and the issues and everything they've kind of been through, they would just kind of throw their hands in the air and just be like, okay, this is the reserve value of the treasury where it's going to distribute it to all the token holders and call it quits. But, as you can see from, though they started as contributors, they weren't even on the core team. And then they rose to their positions. And I thought that was actually really unique and interesting.
Definitely a really inspiring DeFi DAO story for all the contributors out there. If I'm new to the space and I'm looking how to get involved, or if I've been around for a while and I haven't had my break yet, like you can look at the stories of Lux and Miri and how they worked their way up and how they were there through all the ups and downs and all the sleepless nights. And now it seems like, Temple may have bottomed like a while ago, but it seems like Temple is really about to lift off with this whole family of products being available at the Spice Bazaar, with first Origami and then these other things they're cooking up behind the scenes in the Temple. Who knows, maybe in the Great Hall, maybe in the basement, but they're definitely going to be eating good. And it's, I want to see them succeed. I want to see an on-chain DAO full of Anon succeed to show the world like, hey, look at the good. Look at like what could be built on chain in our world. It would be a great shining example to show to everyone.
Yeah, like full meritocracy on display. But here's my, I'm gonna be the Debbie Downer per se. But,
okay.
But it's like it's gonna be real. Like if they're having issues pulling in users and just having activity on their core products, what makes it that all of these auxiliary / incubator projects would also take flight? Like, what is their growth strategy, especially in the bear? The bear is for building, yes, but after you build it, you need people to use it. So what is their strategy around that? I didn't get a chance to ask that on the call, but that's something that I think would be really interesting to hear.
Get a little to the point. Well, let me, if I had to stand up for our Templars over there and maybe give them a little bit of advice, because I really haven't heard too much of TempleDAO at all since the whole AMM fiasco. I just kind of assumed they'd like, other than talking to Miri, I knew they were like doing stuff. I knew they were doing treasury management, but I didn't know they were doing this whole builder blitz per se for their products. And it's actually really impressive. And I think what they need to do is do like a second marketing push. Hell, maybe do a second opening ceremony, which it sounds like they're going to do with Origami.
Reopening.
A grand reopening of the Spice Bazaar.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're planning that. I wouldn't put it past them. But they need to, introduce their new family of products in a big way, especially to get the attention span of the short attention span and of the DeFi news cycle and the crypto news cycle. Because, and stepping on, I'm really happy I had them on. Like, I've seen Miri at all these conferences. He was telling me about all their products. I knew they've been loyal participants and quite active in the Frax ecosystem. And Sam Kaz suggested we had it on. So it's great that we had him on. It's a good first start. And I hope we give them the flywheel bump. I hope they can harness the power of the flywheel and use that as the beginning, as a springboard to show the world what Temple is offering everyone. So exciting, real exciting stuff. And we're definitely gonna keep an eye on them. Gonna see them in Singapore. Shout out Miri, shout out Lux. Thank you for coming on. And if you want to catch up with everything flywheel and make sure you keep on harnessing the power of the flywheel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button to never miss an episode. Flywheel, Frax Check, This Week in Frax, everything in between. Hit that bell button, give us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Flywheel DeFi. Make sure you join our Telegram group at Flywheel DeFi. You can follow me on Twitter at DeFiDay22.
You can follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And make sure you check out our new website right now, flywheeldefi.com. If you're new to Frax, this is the resource to go to get started learning about Frax. We have a whole Frax 101 section for beginners and for the advanced alike. I know there's a lot going on with Frax V3. I know it may be overwhelming, but we're here to break it down and make it simple for you. So make sure you go to Flywheel DeFi. Make sure you subscribe there for all the latest updates. And thank you again for watching Flywheel. We will see you next week.
And Dave, before we go, what was that website again?
Flywheeldefi.com.
That's right.
That's right. All right. See you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.
Everything said on this episode is not financial or tax advice. This channel is strictly for educational purposes and is not an investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any assets or to make any financial decisions. This video is not tax advice whatsoever. Please talk to your accountant and do your own research.